You actually have a day job, right?
Yeah, I'm the senior director of cybersecurity for a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
And yeah, my job is to make sure we don't get hacked. And I've been there for a decade.
Listen, my listeners here are a very dedicated group of listeners, and they're very intelligent people. They're very curious people. They have a willingness to learn and apply things they learn. And I know that about them because I've been doing this for a lot of years. I know my core audience. And I want to start talking about some of this, assuming that I know about maybe average what people in my generation know about the internet. I've always said younger people have the knowledge about the internet. I've watched my grandkids, they zip around like crazy. I mean, they just go everywhere. They have the knowledge, but not the wisdom. I feel like I have the wisdom, but not the knowledge. And so I want to up the knowledge curve a little bit. When you say you've worked there for a decade, keeping them from getting hacked, let's define hacked. In cybersecurity, when you say hacked, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically, a hacker is trying to get into our secure environment, and they're trying to get into our networks, our servers, and our job is to keep them out, but they're coming in for a specific reason. And it's 9 out of 10 times it's financial. They want to hack your systems. They want to get into your environment. They want to learn your environment. And then they want to make that financial move to get money out of your account out onto the Bitcoin platform.
You and I've worked with some of the average, everyday citizen who's not a multi-billion-dollar company, but yet they get hacked. I know this because I have friends where it's obvious someone has gotten into their contacts and they start sending messages that look like they're coming from my friend.
Yeah, the email's being spoofed.
And they're coming to me, and I know they're not from them because as soon as I read, I think this is not his vernacular, this is not his syntax. I can tell from looking at it that this is not him, but it says it's coming from him.
Right.
What is the interest in getting into somebody's contacts? And is that how far they usually get?
Yeah, so it all starts with the human element. That's hacking more than anything else. Is they target one person. So let's say that they target you and they hack your account, they hack your email account, and they look at your sent emails and they look at your address book and they export. They take your entire address book that you have in email and Outlook, for example,
Right.
and now they have all of your contacts. And then from there, they're going to start reaching out to every one of them saying that they're Dr. Phil. But for the average person, when they get that email, it's something like we saw earlier today on the show about, I need money right away. I'm in the hospital. I've been in an accident, whatever it may be. And that's how the hackers start. So they have this huge base to work with yours as ground zero.
So let's say I get an email from Bobby X.
Yeah.
And it's not Bobby X because somebody's gotten into his contacts and sends it to me.
Yeah.
If I respond to it, does that give them any access to me?
And that's a great question because it depends. So a couple of things happen right there when you respond. Now they have verified that your email address is legitimate. That's for starters. Now what they might do a couple emails later when they respond to you is have a link to something. Hey, I need you to check this out real quick. Would you mind? It's when you click on that link that the real trouble begins, because two things will happen. One, most likely you get rerouted to another website that'll ask for your username and password. And you'll think, oh, I just got locked out of my email. I logged out. I got to log back in. And a lot of people will log back in. Or what's even worse, when you click on that link, someone now has access to your machine. A very good hacker, once you click on that link, there's a lot of things I now know about you and that machine that I'm getting ready to hack.
Okay, so if we get a link, somebody sends us a link and we don't know this person.
Yeah.
And we don't recognize the link, we obviously should not click on it.
You should delete the email. But if you are curious, one thing you can do is you hover your mouse, your pointer of your mouse onto the link. And when you do that and you don't click on it, you just hover over it, it'll actually show you the link it's actually going to. So if it says Microsoft.com, but when you hover over it, it's a completely different link, then you know that it's fake.
Okay. Now, if we get links and they say HTTP colon, and then there's an address, that's different from if it has an address that says HTTPS
Right.
colon. And that S is significant,
Yeah,
right?
it's a SSL. It's the security. It's saying that that site is secure. It has a certificate. I don't want to sound like too much of a nerd here, but basically it is verifying that that site with the S is a secure site. It is far more secure than the HTTP without the S.
Okay, so just as a simple rule, if people look for that S, if
That's
they
a
have
good
any
start.
question at all, if they look for that S, that'll save them trouble a lot of times.
A lot, not always, but yeah, a lot of times a really good hacker will even still use the S,
Yeah.
just for that. But you're right for the most part.
Yeah, that's not a get out of jail free card,
Exactly.
but that saves them trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, if somebody gets into somebody's contacts, how do they get in there?
So they're in on Outlook, for example. Every time you have save a contact on your phone, if it syncs with Outlook, that contact is now in your email. But furthermore, if you didn't have any contacts, the hacker will just go to your sent folder and they'll just export every sent email you have ever sent to any person, and they'll export the addresses that way.
Well, but how do they get in there though?
It depends on how you were hacked. So if you clicked on that link that we mentioned earlier, if you click on that link, or if you put in your username and password after you clicked on that link, now someone has access to your account. So they can log into your account. And a lot of times, unless you have two-step authentication in place, I'll get to that in a minute, but unless you have two-step authentication in place, you wouldn't know that someone just logged into your account. There's no way you would know unless you looked at a log, for example, which most people wouldn't do. So a lot of this could be done and you would have no idea that the hacker was even there in the first place. They're from a forensic digital footprint perspective, a good hacker won't leave one.
Okay, so Bobby X is just sitting out there and all of a sudden somebody's into his contacts.
Yeah.
My question is, how did they get there to begin with? How did they get into him?
How did they get to Bobby?
Yeah. Was it through somebody else?
A lot of times it's hard to tell what the root cause, who was the first hack in that chain of hacks. A lot of times you never find out. The hacker will be the only one that knows who was first. So Bobby X could have been the first person that was hacked. He could have been the one that clicked on the link, or it could have been downstream.
But somebody has to click on a link
Somebody
somewhere.
got hacked somewhere. Someone put in their credentials where they shouldn't have put them in. Someone was absolutely hacked.
But in order to be hacked, somebody has to enable the hacker.
You're right. There's a human intervention that occurs for someone to be able to hack. In some instances, now there's the other side of the fence of a hacker will go on the dark web and they won't have to hack you at all. So, maybe your credentials were put out there from another Verizon or Microsoft. Something else was hacked that had your username and password. They go on the dark web, they see that username and password, and they assume that you use that password for all of your accounts. A lot of people do that. They use the same password for 20, 30 different accounts, their banking accounts, their email accounts, and the hacker knows that. So even if I don't have your bank or your email password, I might have it from your LinkedIn profile, for example. And I'll just assume that you use the same password and I'll try and get in that route.
So people shouldn't use the same passwords.
No.
But how do they remember all those passwords?
Yeah, and there's a new apps. There's Microsoft Authenticator where you don't even really need a password anymore. It's part of the two-step authentication. But I always tell people, if you insist on keeping passwords separate for each account, you should put that on a spreadsheet, and you should put that spreadsheet in your safe and keep it in your safe. And if that spreadsheet is still sitting on your computer, you delete that spreadsheet. A lot of people will do it by hand, but that is the safest way to make sure that you don't lose your passwords. Never have them online.
Well, that's not handy.
It's not. Yeah, it takes time, and it's a pain, but it's there's so many ways people are trying to get you on the internet these days. So you want to do anything you possibly can to try and prevent that, with the thought being, even if one of your accounts was compromised, at least the other 24 aren't. And then you can immediately go and change passwords for everything just to play it real safe.
But once you do that, if you've got 10 televisions, you got to log in 10 times?
So for the televisions, because those are connected to the wireless network for updates and things like that, that would be a little bit different than just your actual everyday accounts.
Like, I've got Netflix on my iPad, the Netflix app.
Yeah.
I've got Netflix on my TV at home.
Yeah.
So if I change it on here, I got to then go change it at home too.
Yeah, that is true. If it
That's
was
a full-time job.
Every 3 months, I always recommend every 90 days that you change your passwords.
Really?
Yeah. And I know it's such a pain, and I completely am sympathetic towards it, but it's a lesson you learn once. It might seem like, I can't believe I have to do this every 3 months. If you get hacked one time, especially if you have a big financial loss, you will definitely start being more cautious.
And then what's this authenticator you're talking about where you don't have to have the password?
So they have, authenticator apps where it's passwordless, and you basically it's the equivalent of a two-step authentication. You get a notification on your, phone saying, "Hey, is this you trying to log in?" And if you say, "Yep, that's me," you're in. It's a changing environment. A lot of companies are going to a passwordless environment just for the reasons we're discussing right now, or just like we saw on the show today.
Well, maybe that's what I should do.
Yeah, I could help you with that.
I have a lot of different accounts
Yeah,
and apps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So